Is it a good idea to try to get back with my ex, whom I hurt 4 years ago? Sorry for it being so long, but the opinions I received varied as I provided more context, so I want as objective answers as possible. If you don't want to read all of it, I think the last 5 paragraphs are the most important ones. I started dating A when I was 11 and she was 12. We dated secretly for 6 months, but I had idealized her, so when I started getting to know her flaws and quirks, I backed out and broke up with her, taking advantage of our first argument without telling her the reason, and completely stopped talking to her. A year and 3 months later, at her best friend S's party, she told me that A was still in love with me even after a year and was waiting for us to get back together. This devastated me, and because I previously had been in love with someone for 4 years without them reciprocating, I never acted on those feelings. I knew how tough it had been for her. So, I got back together with her out of pity, thinking I owed it to her, and because it was true that during that year, I sometimes missed when we were a couple. This time, I had no expectations and accepted her as she was. I fell completely in love with her, flaws and all. It was the happiest time of my life. We didn't argue or fight, and although due to situations in our country, we could only communicate through messages or calls as we were still dating secretly, we were happy, and nothing else mattered as long as I could talk to her. Midway through our relationship, her mom died of cancer, which affected our relationship. I'm not a very empathetic person, so I can't figure out the best way to act toward people with problems, and she didn't want people to worry about her, feel sorry for her, or offer fake help. So, my solution was to treat her normally, as if everything were normal, a way for her to forget about her problems and not be reminded of them. But due to my immaturity, over time, I became more careless, thinking it would help her without considering the consequences. I began not taking things seriously, as if everything were a joke. It was my wrong way of helping, and due to my immaturity, sometimes, while playing or having fun, I hurt her feelings. One of the things I did was hit walls or hurt myself when I was angry, although I never got angry because of her, but she didn't like it when I did that, so she told me the next time she wouldn't speak to me for a week. So, one day, when I failed to do something for her, completely my fault, I got angry with myself and cut my fingers a bit with scissors. I was going to be out of the country for personal reasons, and since there was no internet where I was going, I didn't want her to worry about me, take more notes in school for me, or giving extra problems, so I showed her my cuts. She got serious and didn't speak to me. The following week, I thought, okay, we can talk again now, and since she was mad at me, she didn't worry about my absence, so we could go back to normal. Of course that was a big mistake. I tried to apologize, but when I talk about a problem or my feelings, I do it very objectively, as if it's not a big deal. In the past, when I told someone else about my problems, I always did it in a rational way that made it seem like they weren't a big deal. This can lead to others misinterpreting how I feel or how serious the problem is for me. A was afraid that I could be interpreted it as me not caring, not being sorry, or not taking things seriously. So, I tried to tell her how I felt, put all my feelings into words and express them, but the words wouldn't come out, and I just felt a lump in my throat. I couldn't look her in the eyes and remain silent as my feelings overwhelmed me, but didn't come out. Since apologizing by message would have the same effect of not caring, I tried to apologize with my actions and act as I did before, but she interpreted this as if I didn't care about what I had done and was just letting it go, as if nothing had happened. Because of this, it became increasingly difficult to talk to her through messages, and I would think carefully about what to say until there was nothing more relevant to talk about, and I stopped chatting with her because every message I sent would be a bother and I would only receive a yeah as a response, justified. In school, I could only treat her like a friend due to our secret and to prevent others from bothering her. After 2 months, with the help of S, I was able to apologize, although it was very regrettable, and we started talking again. Then one day, she asked me what I wanted from the relationship in the future. I knew that I would eventually hurt her again, maybe I could stop acting so immature, but the fact that I couldn't support her in school overwhelmed me and was necessary to help her. So, I proposed changing schools and starting over, something I had always refused, but I was willing to do it for her. When she rejected this, I was left with no options. While every part of me resisted, I thought it was best to break up to avoid hurting her again and continue supporting her simply as a friend. I thought we were okay with that until one day she asked me why I treated her differently around other people. Not knowing exactly what she meant, my response wasn't enough, and when I tried to express myself again, I couldn't say anything, as had happened before. She told me that if I wanted to continue as before, I should apologize to her. For the same reasons, I couldn't, and I tried to apologize with my actions as before, and things didn't seem to be going badly until one day she gave me a note explaining how I had hurt her. With a lot of pain, I decided to cut all contact so she could heal, move on, and be with someone better. 2 years later, a girl asked me to be my girlfriend, and I thought enough time had passed, but it wasn't the case, and I ended it after a week because I felt nothing for her and kept comparing her to A. I moved to another country and apologized 3 years after our breakup in December 2022, although at her request, through a message. Her response was something like, "I'm glad you've shared your feelings. I understand that both of us have changed a lot since then, and I don't hold any grudges for what happened between us when we were young. Our relationship wasn't serious, we were immature, and life took us in different directions. You shouldn't carry any guilt because it's not all your fault." And now, despite 4 years having passed, I still think about her even though we don't talk. I've deleted messages and photos, gone to parties, met new people, and it seems that time alone is not enough. I wanted to believe this wasn't possible, but it seems like I've continued to love her just the same every day since we broke up. I told one of my friends here, who knows nothing about my past, about this situation to get advice on how to move on. They suggested I should write to her and, if she rejects me, at least I could have closure because I would have tried everything. 2 other old friends also said the same thing. Despite our past and the fact that if we got back together, I could only see her for 2 weeks every 4 months, this is my last option, and even if in my mind I never wanted to do this and think this is a bad idea, my heart just won't listen. So I have many doubts about whether I should do it or not. I just want her to be happy and not hurt or bother her in any way. So, I would like to know if it would be right to do this, and if not, please tell me what else I can do to move on. Next story 2. The guy I almost dated cut things off through a crying voice message. How should I process this and move on? So, about a month ago, I met this guy on Bumble. We'll call him Lucas for anonymity. When Lucas and I started chatting, we surprisingly hit it off very well. Our conversations flowed great, to the point where our texts went from novels to voice messages to fit the amount of things we had to say, haha. I thought he had a lovely voice, and vice versa, and our conversations were always exciting and never dry. We switched from Bumble to text messaging through our numbers. Naturally, we set up a date. It was relatively chill, we walked around a park, went to the pool, and grabbed food. He was much cuter in person than in his pictures, and I thought he was super charming yet sweet and shy. We had great chemistry in person. God. We were constantly laughing, smiling, and flirting. At the end of the date, he gave me a sweet little gift that was very thoughtful and referenced something I had mentioned in one of our conversations. He also sent me a song later that night that reminded him of me. I listened to it and loved it. I thought it was such a cute gesture. Since we live a half hour away from each other and work full-time, I'm also in college full-time, we set our dates up for the weekends. We went on a second date the following weekend. Lucas reached out on a weeknight to tell me that he would love to see me again. We continued to regularly text each other throughout the week, sending memes, reels, and TikToks. We checked in on each other's days and occasionally asked more get-to-know-you questions. A couple of days after our second date, we ended up having an 8-hour-long phone call. There was never a lull in that conversation, and we loved learning about each other more and more. We agreed to meet for a third date the following weekend and then a fourth the week after. For some context, Lucas had told me a lot of sweet things in between all of this. I genuinely thought we were going to eventually end up dating. He told me that he likes me, he wants to date me, and we even made plans for the winter. It snows where we are. He told me that he had gotten off Bumble and was exclusively talking to me. Mind you, he told me this 2 days before our fourth date. On our fourth date, we went to the movies, got dinner, and went to an arcade. We each spent about $120 on this date, and he wanted to keep playing at the arcade and prolong our stay. We finally said our goodbyes, and I gave him a little $15 gift before leaving myself. He said he loved it. We kissed, and I left. It went great. In the following couple of days, I noticed he was a little distant. I didn't mind since absence makes the heart grow fonder and we already had a fifth date planned for the Sunday. I also figured that some of the initial infatuation was giving way to a little more comfortability and that he might ask me out within the next few weeks. Anyway, while I was at work, he sent me a 3-minute long voice message crying and saying he wanted to end things. I was so caught off guard and confused that I asked to call him. Thankfully my shift ended in 30 minutes. In his initial message, he explained that he didn't want to end up getting hurt. That he's been thinking and hasn't been eating or sleeping for the past few days. He said that we shouldn't date, that he's not ready to open up, and that there are some things that I don't know about him. He also said that he didn't want to lose me or throw out the gifts I gave him. He then proceeded to say that he deleted Bumble after I sent my first voice message to him, that he never lied about any of his feelings, that there wasn't another girl or anything, and that he was genuinely only talking to me. Mind you, that whole bit was completely unprompted. I didn't even consider that the reason why he was doing this was because of another girl. During this voice message, he was pausing, sniffling, and crying quite a bit. I felt terrible listening to it. I called him. I explained that I was confused considering how well everything was going. He said he didn't think this would happen. I pointed out that his saying that he dates to marry and that he's looking for a long-term relationship/wife can give people the wrong message if that's not how he actually feels. He said that he was not ready to open up, that I barely knew him, and that he was a bad person, his exact words. This phone call was a lot of me trying to understand him and him being cryptic, vague, and dodging questions. He said that it has nothing to do with me, anything that I said or did, and that it's all him. He's scared that something would happen in the future that would make us break up, so it'd be better to end things now than then. I explained that that's kind of the risk with relationships, nothing is absolutely guaranteed. I pressed him a little further and he started to say how anxious he got before each date, and how he wanted to cancel each one because he was overthinking and felt guilty for not feeling as invested as me. This confused me even more since I didn't get off of Bumble until way later, and he was the one who started making all of these hypothetical if we dated plans the first week we talked. He was initially way more emotionally invested from the start, until now I guess. He, like I mentioned earlier, told me that he got off Bumble before our amazing fourth date. It was he who said he wanted to date me first. He said he liked me first. I was fine taking things at whatever pace he felt the need to. Anyway, he said that there were aspects of me that most guys would like that he thinks are incompatible with him. He thinks I'm an energetic extrovert and he's an easily stressed and anxious introvert. As someone with anxiety disorder, I am super sensitive to stress as well and would have totally been willing to help him when he's stressed in general. But he never communicated that. He wants someone who can read him, but I pointed out how crucial communication is and how I can't be expected to read his mind. I also am more of an ambivert. My social group only consists of my co-workers, an old friend, and my family. I don't party, club, or even go out. I'm a PC gamer girl who goes to work and double majors. I don't really do much. When I pointed that out he just gave me some other vague excuse. Ultimately, he said that he doesn't ever see us dating because it would hurt more to lose me in the future than now. He said that if I text him, he'll answer, and he still follows all of my social media. This whole situation makes absolutely zero sense to me. I appreciate him eventually opening up about his commitment issues. I can't be mad at him for his honesty. I just feel like he's hiding something and Loki led me on until I was as emotionally invested as he initially was. I'm having a hard time processing this and would love some advice.